Okay, welcome everyone. This is our last Mate Talk of the year. Um, to anyone new here, the Mate Talk or the idea of the Mate Talk is to have these say conversations with friends and colleagues from the industry from different angles and try to uh, create something or learn something together, not from one's knowledge, but from everyone's collaborative conversation and knowledge. And that's the spirit of these um, roundtable. Everyone here, I know several are muted or have the camera off. Feel free to turn the camera on, unmute yourself, and join the conversation. Like any point, it's not that we're the experts and the rest are here to listen to us. It's a conversation between friends and colleagues from the media and video space. I'm JP, in case you don't know me. And our usual guests here are Barry Owen from WOSA, David Hassoun from Dolby, Alex Zambelli from Dolby. We have Babesh and Olga. They happen to be both on an airplane at this exact moment. Olga, because she had a new visitor planned urgently, and then Babesh because he had some sort of a special emergency with his flight coming back from Europe. So we're going to miss them tonight or today, whatever you are. Here in your way, it's still it's about sunset. So welcome everyone, and today's topic is going to be wrapping up 2024, what it left, and what the outlook is for 2025, and why not? What our streaming wishes are for 2025, what we would love that happened to our industry. So I don't know, maybe you want to start? I don't know, Alex, how was 2024 for you? How was it?
For me or like for the industry?
Both, from your angle.
From your angle. I don't know, I thought it was a good year. Looking back, I feel like this year to me felt like the first year after the pandemic where it feels like kind of everything's gone to pre-pandemic days in terms of like attendance at events and things like that. I thought like NAB was really well attended, IBC was well attended, BMUX were well attended, and so yeah, it kind of feels like the first year of normalcy compared to the pandemic years. Yeah, so I would say like in general, it's been it was a good year. I thought BMUX was great this year. I thought I don't know if how many people who are on this call attended that, but I thought it was another great edition of BMUX. So. Yeah, I'll let somebody else take their turn, and then we can talk about our wishes for 2025.
I'll go. Second year on Demux. I think that was one of the best Demuxes I've actually been to.
And you guys are just rubbing it in.
Yeah, David can go. Ha ha ha. I think it's interesting. I think there was many challenges for the industry this year. I mean, I think there was a lot of uncertainty with the U.S. election cycle and other, rising interest rates and all that stuff that made the business side of things challenging. I think also at a time when there was lots of consolidation and lots of companies realizing that amassing giant user bases isn't enough to make a profitable business, and you actually have to control costs and learn how to make money. So I think it's kind of an interesting time for the industry as that happens, and I think you're going to see more consolidation. But I think that's a good thing, because I think in general, when you see consolidation, you certainly see smaller companies either failing or getting snapped up. But I think it also leads to companies being able to get started and do some innovation, kind of from a clean slate almost, if you will. So I think there's both challenges and opportunities with that, but I think that's going to continue to cycle for at least another year.
And I mean, I agree a lot with that, Barry. I think that coming into 24, I mean, great highlight was got to start with summer camp, of course. But as far as the industry goes, like prior to 24, like we really kind of started hitting some harder times. There's a lot of contraction. There was a lot of more consolidation, and there was a big drive to like, okay, guys, we can't just keep spending money. We need to make money from all these providers and so forth. And in those times, innovation often gets pushed to the side because we need to work out on cost reduction, solidity, how we can do more with less, and so forth. And I think it's taken us a little while this year to get through that, but I think we are starting to come a little bit on that upswing of there, where there's now more opportunity for innovation. There's more interest on what is next, and there's caution with that. Like I think we're, as the pendulum swings, right, we go back and forth. We have to be. You often can overcorrect and then come at this with a better mindset after the fact. And I think we're really primed for some really powerful new innovation and technology adoption and so forth in the coming year. And I think that there's still some tougher times. It's not just the heyday of not that many years ago, where it's like, cool, we'll just throw money at any problem. But there's and people at it. Now that's becoming something that's more of an interesting balance and challenge. But I do see a real good upside, and I do see people looking and talking a little bit more to what comes next. And I remember like out in Uruguay when we talked with the college there, like I think that I go ahead now, and I think we're gonna really hopefully come into that space of, I think we are really set for some big changes in our industry. Like we've kind of maxed out a lot of things that we can do. So what's next? And I think that that's going to hopefully start becoming more of the conversation of what does the future potentially hold for us? That's something really new and different. Aside from just continually trying to improve, but like we're having more and more diminishing returns because a lot of things have been worked on, a lot of things have been trying to be addressed. But that doesn't mean there isn't new stuff, and there doesn't mean there still isn't room for other things. So I'm excited for where we're headed in these next, coming years. Nothing always moves super quick except for ideas. But we'll see where it goes.
I think that's a really interesting point that if you think about the streaming industry, right, it was kind of a niche, kind of grew, but it was largely built on existing technologies, right? And it feels like now we're just getting to the point where people are taking a step back and be like, well, what if we did this completely differently?
Right.
And actually design this from a greenfield startup. How would we have done it?
Yeah.
Without having to build on pre-existing things. And that's, maybe that's the mark of an industry that finally gets mature and big enough to kind of go that direction.
Right.
Without having to rely on other stuff. So that could be the next 10
because
years.
I mean,
could
you have
be
to look at
amazing.
this like, hey, we could spend 6 months and get a 5% performance improvement, and I'm using generic elements of this here. Or at this point, like, wow, that's a lot of work for a little return. What if we did that? You take that step back and you look at that greenfield. What would we really change, and what would we really gain? But that also requires the investment and that time, which is hopefully now we're getting to the point that that's going to be somewhat appetizing.
Interesting what you say, but if what I've seen lately is that consolidation plus the state of the market, like the contraction, what has meant is that companies are only spending money on putting all the pieces together again, like having one app, one backend, one ingest, one. And so what we've seen is that probably in the last couple of years, at least from a user standpoint, there seems to be very little innovation. Like what's really different in any streaming app today that from what they had 2-3 years ago? Like, is there anything really different in our experience with any of the streaming apps out there? Or is it just that cost reductions and consolidating, I don't know, systems?
I think there's certainly desire to do that, right? I mean, I think one of the things you hear a lot is engagement, right? And it's like, how do we get people more engaged and more, I don't know, giving them alternatives and better experiences. And maybe that's just as important as the underlying streaming technology is how people interact and consume that video.
Well, I think it becomes more important because of the consolidation as content and libraries and platforms have come together, right? Yes, the first thing is we need to make this work, and we need to make it work in some sort of unified fashion. And you can get the oh, we're going to build it from scratch, or we're going to pick the best of parts, and you end up with a Frankenstein, like whatever it is. But in the end, as we have greater consolidation, there's, more clustered content and cross license and so forth. I still think that, aside from the streaming tech itself, like we have major challenges that hopefully we'll start to find creative solutions around better discovery and so forth. So doom scrolling goes away and you gain greater engagement because you're able to find the content that you want. And also there's better programming because they know what you're going to go for and so forth. And I think there's still great opportunity there to have customer stand apart, because I still think, we're in this grand big cycle again around consolidation and individualization and separation. And we still have whole elements of subscription fatigue and all that. Those are, people want to maintain their customers. They're trying to do that through better engagement and better experiences and so forth. And that's going to become part of that necessity and so forth. And I do think we're still going to see greater consolidation and cross content access and so forth as a necessity in time. But how we make that actually work for end users is something that I don't think oftentimes gets talked about a lot.
When I think of this past year and kind of think of like what changed in terms of content that like we see on services, one thing that stands out to me is that I feel like this was the year where live sports really became an integral part of all the mainstream streaming services, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying it's the first time we've seen live sports on, big streaming services. Obviously, like, there have been like who has been doing, ESPN events, and like Paramount Plus was doing, live events as well. But I mean, think of it like every single, like, what used to be SVOD services this year had live events. Like Amazon had like Thursday Night Football, right? Max started doing live events. All the Turner, all the stuff that Turner had rights to, right? Like that started streaming on Max. Apple TV Plus did a whole season of MLS, like, which is actually groundbreaking in terms of like US sports rights, right? Where it was like no blackouts, like no restrictions. It's like you pay and you get to see every game, right? Peacock had a fantastic year of, for the Olympics. I think it was probably their best Olympics ever in terms of streaming. And then, of course, like Netflix, started getting into the live streaming game and had, I think, probably the biggest audience ever for a live streaming event, or at least like in the top 10, right? So that to me stands out, right? I mean, this is like what used to be SVOD services exclusively suddenly are no longer SVOD, right? Like now it's like, oh, it's a mix, right? And live sports is such an integral part of those offerings.
Well, and having a question, so go for it, Barry.
I was just say there's no underestimating the importance of live sports in the streaming landscape, right? I mean, it's going to continue to drive viewers, drive monetization, but it all comes back to that thing is like, how do you create the best experience for people in those environments?
Well, and that's what I was going to touch on. So Alex, like, I mean, with my thought there, and curious on yours, is the downside of sports right now is it is showing up everywhere. So how is that that also propagates the challenge of I don't have a subscription there, but I want to watch that game. Like the sports realm, like rights is just a freaking mess, right? And it's not gotten better. It's gotten worse in some regards. Now it's cool for the technology in these platforms and so forth, right? But like for the end users, it's creating an interesting challenge of how do you actually gain these users, retain them, because now what you see more is more subscription churn. I'm going to get a subscription for the week or the month.
It's still tied to legacy things too, right? Like, so I like football. I have an NFL Plus subscription because I'm a season ticket holder for the Broncos, so I get that for free.
Right.
But at the same time, I go into the NFL app and try to watch a game. It's like if I didn't have an Xfinity subscription at my condo in the mountains to cheat with and use on my NFL thing, I couldn't see half the games because the rights don't match. And it is kind of a pain in the ass. And it would be certainly nice if somebody would fix that, but there's so much money involved. It's hard to see if it's ever going to happen that way, but it's having to have a legacy subscription to Comcast laying around to get access to other stuff is kind of silly.
Yeah. But I feel like we're finally moving away from that, right? So we're probably moving to a point where it's like you don't need a cable subscription or anything like that, right? Like now it's like, okay, if you got Max, if you got Netflix, if you got, Amazon, like you can watch live events. But I fully agree with you that like it's getting fragmented in terms of how the consumers access that content, right? And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I think there's going to be more fragmentation. I think like we will have the same problem with sports that we now have with VOD content, which is that you want to watch a certain movie, you want to watch a certain show, and you got to go figure out which service
Yeah.
it's on, right? And so I think the same thing will happen with sports. In fact, like some leagues are starting to, you know, sell rights, like they're really fragmenting the way they're selling the rights, right? Like different days go to different services, or different teams go to different services. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be kind of a mess in that regard. But at the same time, I'm glad that we're moving away from, you know, the legacy media and
Yeah,
you
they
know,
are.
moving
It's like
away
you look
from,
at
yeah,
you look at the death of the regional sports networks by and large, right? Because
yeah.
now the teams are taking control and be like, I can pop up my own streaming service. It's easier. I can monetize the games that the league doesn't own the rights to myself for baseball or basketball or hockey, you know, where they have so many games. And it's like the teams, why wouldn't they? They don't have to pay the carriage fees for Comcast or DirecTV.
But and now I wonder, is it going to be about consolidation in media entertainment? Because we see that, but then if you go look at the major streaming events, like even uh, e-gaming has a more viewership than the NFL. Like there's like new content happening with the new stars in the internet, and other media companies capturing that, or are we going to have these new media companies?
I mean, esports is something that I feel like some of the traditional broadcasters have tried to get into, but I think it's kind of hard for them to compete with Twitch or YouTube in that regard, right? Because I think that's where the audience is for something like esports.
Yeah, because my question is, are we going to have like studio content or produced content, and then are we going to have these UGC or these community-led content that's at some point going to eat the entire industry?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, you know, the amount of video consumed on like Instagram or TikTok is probably greater than most of some of the streaming media, right? So, you know, I don't know what that means. You know, are we, you know, are the people who are doing that less engaged with the media entertainment, the produced content, or not? I mean, a lot of the produced content's still doing well enough to put the bill, but maybe that bar gets higher.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think there's plenty of room for them to coexist. I mean, obviously, like yes, like social media and user-generated content are very popular, and especially like, you know, so the younger the audience, right? Like the more time they spend on that. But I don't think any of them are not watching TV or not watching movies because of it, right? I think they're just kind of complementing each other, right?
Yeah, you can scroll Instagram and watch a movie at the same time.
Yeah.
Definitely. And anyone in the audience, do you want
I'd like to hear
to
Casey's opinion on some of the M&E angle stuff, since he works for such a person.
I don't really have much to say on that. Outside the player stuff, I
But
don't know. I'm more
from an
technology
Uber level,
focused.
though, have you felt like the consolidation and the shift towards, hey, we have to make money versus just amassing users and creating content? Or
Yeah, a little bit. You know, on the technical side, there's a huge push for ironing out device fragmentation. You know, like cost cutting in the sense that like, do I have to have 100 teams because there's 100 devices that I have to build for?
yeah,
And so I've seen that kind of stuff. You know, me in particular, seeing as we just merged, I don't know what the future holds for us specifically. So I know that we're, you know, me personally, we're kind of in a heads down, make sure everything's still working, and focus on some bigger plans. But all of our technology plans, I think, are around consolidating, reducing duplication. I mean, that's Common Media Library's point, was to start that process. And to one of the other original points was to get us the tools we need to start building from the ground up again, saying, hey, like we got here by relying on all these pieces. If we want to start solving some of these bigger problems like device fragmentation, we need to have more control over all the different parts of the stack, in my case, the player. So that's what I see coming forward. And I do like some of the stuff, like some of the standards-based stuff that's coming out, at least from a technology perspective. Things like common media error code or common error codes, I guess, you know, for helping us consolidate our tooling, you know, or giving us at least common data sets across our tools, and things like that. So,
But that's still like everything under the hood. Like all that's under the hood. It's not like really innovative from a user standpoint or experience standpoint.
yeah, I don't have much to say at the higher level. I know
Right.
user generated content's a huge talking point. You know what I mean? Like their numbers outweigh traditional TV, and you talk about, you know, does user generated content eat into broadcasting? My 12-year-old says it does, because he doesn't watch anything that's not on a phone. You know, like, and it's not even to say that he's not watching long form stuff. It's just, you know, the concept of a TV channel is completely foreign to him. And you know, when I do have a movie on that we're trying to watch, you know, he's he's on a device looking at something else that's shorter form. So like that's a really tricky, don't necessarily want to call it a problem, but I also don't know how you consolidate broadcast with that.
But I think also, right, he's watching both at the same time, right? So it's like they're not mutually exclusive, right?
They're not, but it's also like it's not like it's something that he went for. You know what I mean? Like he's watching it because it's on, because it's, you know, me and my wife watching it, or whatever the case may be. So I don't know, and it might be just that he's younger. He might get into something different when he's older. I'm not sure, but it's a question that I've had for a couple of years now. As far as like, I don't know what the future looks like with these two separate things, and you're going to have an old enough user base that I think the form of broadcast TV is going to live a little bit longer for sure. But you know, it's like you can't even spin up a show that's like well, I guess you could, but you know, user generated content doesn't really match all the broadcast rules that you have to have, you know, unless I can pre-filter it and for content and, you know, language, all that fun stuff. Yeah, I don't know what that looks like.
Anyone in the audience that want to unmute and join the conversation? Arthur, you probably have something to say about user-generated content.
Why not? This is Fernando. I was joining to learn, but maybe I joined to speak as well. I think I see the audience being not too large. There was an interesting conversation earlier this year in, let me turn on my lights so you can see me. Sorry, there you go. There was an interesting conversation earlier this year at NAB, one of the panels of the streaming summit. And one of the comments or the conversation was about categorizing the sport fans, because they're seasonal sport fans. They are, you know, really follow your team fans. So you cannot group all the fans in one single bucket, right? So there's a lot of you have to dice in different ways. NFL is starting to do part of that. So what's going to happen is a couple of things. They're going to start you know, cutting and dicing the services to all those kind of different personas around sports. And by the way, the money on streaming is around sports and nothing else. The rest is all, you know, AVOD. So that's one element. And the other element, I made a comment in the chat. I think from the league's point of view, from the sports content owners' point of view, they get a better return when it is fragmented, right? Because there is no single entity willing to just, you know, have all the rights for a single, you know, for all the games in the NFL, for example, which is the most expensive of all, right? Or the same thing for MLB, which is highly regional, depending on which clubs or which teams you follow. Or Formula One, you know, it's the same situation. Nobody's going to say. I think the only exception to the case is NBC and the Olympics, which is only once every 4 years, and it's only, you know, for, you know, less than a month. It's kind of a corner case. all the other leagues, all the other stuff, it will continue to be fragmented. So it's going to continue to be a pain in the ass to find anything, right? So you don't know if it's playing SPN, SPN1, SPN2, SPN. It's a nightmare. And if you're a seasonal,
Isn't that what Google does for everyone in the internet?
It's such a clunky solution, right? I mean, David brought up the point earlier about discoverability and thing, and it's hard. The NFL actually does a decent job with it because you can go to the NFL app, and they will effectively proxy in any game within that app, right? But it's rare that that's the case. You try to watch a college football game, you go to ESPN, it's not there. You go to Fox, it's not there. You go to CBS, it's not there. You finally go to Peacock or whatever, and it's there. But discoverability is just not only for live content, but for any content. It's still just a huge problem.
And it goes beyond that, because you might discover where it is, and then you say, oh, listen, I want to see this particular game is the finals, the quarterfinals, I'm following my team. And then, okay, I'm gonna subscribe to these services. Now I subscribe to what's the one for the one that has the South American qualifiers for the World Cup. I don't even know the name, right? So
Paramount Plus, maybe.
VIX.
Oh, yeah.
Right, VIX, which is from Univision and from that group, right? So I had to go through Prime, and then from Prime get into VIX, and then to be able to watch a couple of qualifier games for the Argentinian team, which is where I'm from, right? So, and I ended up paying for that service for a little bit. And then for the next game, which was 2 weeks later, I couldn't remember how to find it. So I went into Prime and said, what was it again? And they start clicking. And then when you find your way into the content, it's already 15 minutes within the game, right? So it is super frustrating. And I agree with the comment, AI will solve this. Still don't know how, but AI will eventually solve this. Okay, I shut up now because I came here to listen, to learn.
No,
it's
perfect.
Yeah, totally agree. It is the fragmentation will continue to be a problem, and yeah, like I said, it will get worse before it gets better. I think next 2-3 years, I think they're gonna be really frustrating for sports fans.
Do you think like different business models like micro subscriptions or things like that would help or hurt, right? So what if you just want to watch like one game? Can you pay $1 or something like that? I don't know if that's better or worse.
It used to be called pay-per-view, right?
Yeah.
I'll be back on pay-per-views.
Yeah, but I'm not going to pay $20 for one game when I can pay $20 for a month or a year of games, right? It's like I want to be able to pay like a tiny fractional amount to see something.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it is a business opportunity for streaming services, right? To apply the TVOD model, right? Basically pay-per-view to sports, because yeah, like in some cases, right? Like I mean, because not all streaming services cost the same, right? And there are some that cost over $25 a month, and that for a lot of people is it high enough, right? Expensive enough to say, actually, I don't care about this game enough to pay that, right? But if you could pay $3, $4 to watch a single event, I think a lot of people would do that.
Yeah.
I like that. Also, I think something that must be solved is like, I don't want to download your app and put again my credit card and all the friction as a user I have to, because I do believe like, yeah, I want just to see this match, but as Barry says, is if I have to download the particular Broncos app and then I want to watch I don't know what other team, it's like, oh my God, application fragmentation and have different paywalls or whatever. It's also like very frustrating.
2008.
Well, and that's I think that's where like somebody like Apple is doing it well. At least like I primarily use Apple TV for watching TV. That is the one place where I can just search for something and it'll pop up and it'll give me all the apps that it's in. If I haven't downloaded it yet, it'll direct me to the store. It'll actually make sure to put free ones in front of paid ones and that. But I mean, that's an entire ecosystem. Like that's beyond any single, I think.
That is done by X1 with Comcast as the same thing.
Okay.
Service. The connected TVs, if you go to Samsung, the Samsung ecosystem, the Roku ecosystem, they have the same feature, right? So they know which subscriptions you have, and then you want to watch a game or you want to watch some specific piece of content, they will tell you, where to watch it. But it continues to be a nightmare because whenever you click on that, it's like, well, you're not subscribing for this specific service.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think the streaming services will. I don't think they're going to give up on their apps. So I don't think we're going to see sort of content sharing, anytime soon. So I think the reason that streaming services will not give up on their apps very easily is because that's where the ads are, right? So that's where they make ad revenue. They want you to
view more stuff here, to move more stuff there.
So they want you to be in their app, right? So it's not just a simple matter of like, oh, well, you paid for this game, therefore I'm going to let you watch it somewhere else, right? I think they really want you to be in their app. So yeah, I think that's not going to go
But even
away.
like a federated search with deep links into the apps would help, right? I mean, Apple does that a little bit within the Apple platform, although, key vendors, i.e. Netflix, don't participate. But, the ones that do, I can fire up an Apple TV and search for something within the Apple interface. And in this case, he said it'll direct me to the right place and sometimes give me choices. So the whole notion of at least a federated search across, an Uber search across every streaming service would be amazing. There's my wish for 2025. Let me find my shit from one place.
And Fire
I
TV
think there's a
does
couple
it,
of things we
tries to do it, but there's always exceptions, right? I mean, that's
Well-
the closest idea that started, to have some level of fruition as to how to aggregate that through the device. So Apple or Fire or whatnot, you can search multiple channels to find what you
Right.
want. Doesn't exactly work excellent.
Well, and there's problems, there's no metadata standards, right? I mean, not everybody's hearing the same stuff, and it's like it's a big can of worms, but
David,
baby
you were gonna
steps,
say
we can
something?
get there.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of things we should look at here. I mean, I think first of all, let's talk about quickly talking about the games thing and about the microtransaction thing. What you're talking about really is a UK style model where you're not subscribing to the streaming service, but you subscribe to your team. So I can subscribe to Cardiff City and I watch all the Cardiff City games, either for individual games, microtransaction, or for the entire season. So I now follow my team and so I can watch all their games. And I'm actually sat in a pub in Cardiff, so hence what's behind me. I think the other thing that's interesting here is also you mentioned discoverability. And I would like to see more, and I would like to see something succeed in 2025, and that's video sitemap. Video sitemap is an interesting technology. It does give the ability to provide deep links into an app. It provides an MRSS data feed of where content is. It could be linked into an application itself. It does start to standardize a little bit of that discoverability model. So I think, I think the two interesting things that I think that sort of cover. Yes, there's an opportunity here for, instead of you having a relationship with a streaming service, you actually have a relationship with your football team. And I completely take the college sports thing. Trying to find Georgia Tech games on any given Saturday is a nightmare because they'll also end up onto the CW, which was the one I think we missed out. And God help getting that one without an antenna. And we had a good season. Except for the Georgia game, which we're not going to talk about. But yeah, I think video versus sitemap, and then maybe also that microtransaction to at a team level be very interesting, and it will be a relationship with your team, not a relationship maybe with an app, or sorry, a subscription service.
Hello there, first time here. I wanted to share that I realized while we were talking about that, I wish we had somebody from gaming industry because there's the same problem. Like you buy a game on PS5, you cannot play the same game on PC and stuff like that. So fragmentation and how you pay for content and then how you continue your journey with that content. For example, you want to buy DLC and you can only buy it for one platform and then you cannot transfer it to somewhere else. So it's a problem everywhere. But I want to share that user-generated content. What I want to say, yeah, I stopped to watch broadcast TV a very long time ago. I'm from Ukraine, so like TV was always not the best part, not like in US where you have interesting stuff. So user-generated content, yeah, you looking ways to make it more easier to get there, and gaming industry loses because you cannot actually monetize it well. Yeah. If you heard podcast making streaming business from Peer. I forgot the name of the company from Gemacht. Yeah, they're talking about that problem.
I'm curious,
But
you said you no longer watch broadcast TV, which makes sense. I think probably most of us on this call like don't watch broadcast TV, but do you watch, like, are you subscribed to any streaming service? Like, do you pay for SVOD?
Yes, and I worked in OTT for half of the year this year in
Yeah.
Vimeo and moved to the player team. So now I'm on a different side. Yeah, it's hard. So for that reason, I wanted also to share that 2 years ago I started to find aggregator. There were sites, and then I found Fire TV as a platform. I got it for free, cheap, and it worked well until I discovered Google TV. And this way I stopped to search for something else, because as soon as I add account on Google TV, it just shows me correct matching to those recommendations. Something like that. Yeah, and it was especially from consumer side, but yeah, it's maybe not the best performance platform which you want to have, or it doesn't have some other capabilities you would like to have. Yeah. I think like Cast, or AirPlay would be not ideal, but it's like much easier. I used it for many years just because I don't want to go through other apps. I just stream it from my laptop and that's it. I forget about apps.
Yeah, that's a good point about like casting, like AirPlay and Chromecast. Yeah, they solve some of those problems.
But if you own the ecosystem, like back to Apple, it's like I would be willing to have a preference on an Apple TV that says if I don't have the app, download it for me and go there anyway, right? And maybe not to the point of paying for something, but just like make it work, right? It's like, oh, that's on the CW app if there is one. I'm gonna go watch the Georgia Tech game. Just download the app for me and start it.
Interesting. And let me say hi to David Brown that appeared over there. Very good old friend. So if we were to wrap up 2024 with these we discussed, and were to start talking about our streaming wishes for 2025, who'd like to start? What would you say? Because we talked about consolidation in technology in the industry itself. We talked about challenges in discoverability. Barry, you said your expectation is that these economical cycle is going to last at least one more year. I think everyone thinks about it. There was all this uncertainty in the elections in the US. What are we to expect in 2025? And what are we to wish for 2025?
I mean, are we talking like realistic wishes, or like I want a pony with a
well, let's say
wish?
Realistic expectations and crazy wishes.
Crazy wishes: no more device fragmentation, and a single streaming solution that just works everywhere, and that you can customize as necessary at the client. But I'm probably not going to get a unicorn for Christmas, so I mean, realistic. I would like to see more focus on innovation and what we can do differently instead of just doing the same. Better user experience and discovery as we work towards solving fragmentation issues and subscription fatigue.
My realistic wish for 2025 is that I'd love to see the trend of collaboration within the streaming industry continue. I feel like we're, as an industry, we're maturing, and we're now at a point where, people who started in streaming, 10, 15, 20 years ago, right now they're at companies like Paramount, like Disney, like, Netflix. And I think it's fantastic that, they're all talking to each other, right? And so I think we've seen in this past year, I think a lot of really great initiatives like CML, and I think SVTA as an organization, I think, is really coming into its own and really kind of becoming the, like the primary dominant, organization for streaming standards. So yeah, I would love to see that continue as a trend. As far as unrealistic wishes, I would love to see fast TV just no longer be referred to as fast because it's just really annoying.
It's just TV.
It's
and
just
and
TV.
and no more manifest manipulation
Yeah.
and play out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Let's
Okay,
see. Realistically,
Yeah.
I think we are making strides in certain cases. I think the collaboration is interesting, and I would like to see that definitely continue. I kind of feel that there is at least more of an acceptance of doing things differently than there may have been in the past, and be willing to try new things as far as, whatever an example, multicast ABR, whatever, pick one, right? And it's like, hey, what we have now may not work in the future. Let's try something else. Maybe, yeah, MOQ, whatever it is. So I hope that continues, and that there's people willing to take the risks to to move some of those things forward. Unrealistically, it's very similar to what David said. It's like, I want to be able to turn on a single device and watch anything for free. But hopefully we just make progress towards eliminating fragmentation and really looking into the discoverability stuff. It's very interesting. We went this whole 45 minutes without really talking about too many like actual real concrete examples of what AI is going to do. And I think the interesting part about that too is I don't think anybody knows, right? I mean, it's still kind of a big scary monster at this point. And you look at the innovation curve, and it's probably still in the unrealistic hype phase or whatever that is, the top of the curve before it goes into the trough of the oh shit, nothing's going to work. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I mean, I think there's definitely room for interesting applications of AI. I think you're starting to see some of them. Maybe that'll continue to go at some existing, at some interesting scale next year.
Excellent. In the audience, anyone
Well, we want to hear
wanting
yours.
to bring mine? I love the collaboration part you both mentioned. I do think it's the way forward. I do feel it. Also, realistically, I wish all our friends that have been impacted by layoffs and the staff market do get a new valuable job. I do. I see so many friends impacted in the past couple of years, but I do wish so. But I do wish it's it's not a bubble. Like it's really innovating and creating real value, and not just free money and bubbles in the market. Probably that's the unrealistic part. Probably the not bubble. Sorry, my internet glitched. Is the unrealistic part. Maybe a crazy wish. Wow, I have so many crazy wishes. Maybe one of them is a server-guided fast channels. That's a crazy wish.
Sounds like a cool idea.
Sounds like a cool idea. How about you, Nico? Any crazy wishes?
Me?
Yes,
Yeah,
you.
I have some. But the realistic ones, I hope we have Dash 6th edition going out, and everything regarding alternative MPD works perfectly. Also, would love to see the common errors going out. That would be great. CMCD v2 going out. That would be great also. And the craziest one, I hope to see Apple joins SBTA, creating a working group saying, hey, let's figure out everyone together how to continue developing HLS. And another wish I have is, please, Apple, don't create Apple Media Work Week. Just join the current Media Work Week.
JC, Arthur, Fernando, do you want to jump in? I see June also.
I don't have much of that everybody hasn't already said, I'll just say it once again, that the collaboration thing was really cool this year. You know, you talk about demuxed FOMs was actually really neat. Like just this idea that all the developers from the different media companies and the browser hardware come, you know, together just in a room with no like that conference boggles my mind how it works. And it works every year. It's just, hey, we're gonna throw everybody in a room and have a bunch of quick workshops, and it just happens and it works. So I'd like to see more of that, because I think we produce better products overall. We're all working together.
I say something. I think my wish is that the business catches up with the technology. I think the innovation, the technology is there. You can do so many things from low latency. You know, it's a whole bunch of innovation. I'm not going to get into that, but I think the business is behind. You know, the content rights. You know, again, discoverability. The companies are right now. The companies that are driving the revenue that feeds into the technology vendors are struggling, right? The ARPU has reached peak. You know, the content owners have this proliferation of content. It's a lot of things happening in the business side. So I really wish, which I think is not going to happen in 25, maybe it's going to happen in 26. The consolidation happens quickly, and they figure out a way to trickle down the economics into the industry technology vendors, which is mostly, you know, these people, except for Paramount guy. It's mostly, you know, the people in this call. So that's my crazy wish.
Yeah. I have one, you might remember that wish from Demax. There was a talk that we don't have enough people joining industry on from engineering side. It's like people who write those low-level things in C and Rust, and overall onboarding to the video technology is not an easy path. And even today, even like for client side where I'm working on player side, it's hard to just grab somebody who doesn't have any experience about video technology and teach them and like explain why it's like that, how it's used, and history behind it, like going very, very many years ago. It's a difficult journey, and I know we have resources like Awesome Video and maybe some other repositories where people usually learn that stuff, and books, of course. Yeah, H264 book, we read it this year, and it was very puzzling. Like you need to get maybe education degree and spend many years like going through all those algorithms and stuff to understand it well. So yeah, education I think would be very cool to have, and easy on board people and get things moving. And yeah, time flies fast, so we need to be ready for that.
Excellent. Hi, Ian.
Hello.
What are your streaming wishes?
My streaming wishes. I wish for, more adoption and support from the CDNs for the new CAT standard. We've been looking at that. So the CTA 5007, the token URL signing. I think that was a really, really good standard to come out that has sort of been an issue for a lot of people. And the dream wish would be for cloud providers to stop charging for egress. It kills our industry, or for some of us.
True.
That is a crazy wish.
I forgot my crazy wish of getting a sort of cross-company fund going to buy back all the TVs made before 2017.
Device fragmentation right there.
Setting
Just
them on
cut 'em all
fire.
out.
Yep.
Maybe we get rid of Roku at the same time. I don't know. It's just an idea. Call me crazy.
I'm all for it. I mean, somewhere we have to be able to put the numbers together to be like, 20 developers spent 100 hours trying to solve this bug on this old LG, and we could have just bought the guy a TV and
Right?
delivered it to him.
Right, exactly.
I led the SBTA device deprecation working group.
There you go.
Come up with a plan. We just write a virus or something that bricks them all.
Yeah. We would need to fight with international companies also, like PlayStation, how to get rid of old models and stuff. And also flip phone. Yeah, flip phones with Android, where you can still surf internet and try to play video.
All right, I got something. Can I share my
June.
screen, JP?
What, sorry?
Can I share my screen?
Sure, why not?
All right.
Do you need permission, or can you do that? I don't
No, I was just seeing if it was
know.
copacetic to
That's
do.
right, too.
Okay, so we've all worked hard, and dreams for 2025 is better tooling for creating user-generated content. I know that Barry mentioned, hey, what can we use AI for? So I'm just going to share this real quick. So I've been playing around with Sora a little bit, and figured
Is
we
he
could do
surfing on
some
toast?
comic relief. No, it's a piece of chashu.
Wow.
We've all worked hard. Figured some comic relief would be nice.
It's perfectly realistic. I would believe any of those.
Definitely.
All right. Should we call it a wrap?
Let's go.
Call it a
Let's call it a
year.
wrap. Let's call it a year. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Alex, David, and Barry, for always being here. Thank you, June, Arthur, Casey, Fernando, David, everyone for joining. Nico, Mika, and Agustina, that's done all the work under the hood.
Mhm.
Thank you, Agus. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
Well, and thank you for putting this on for the industry. And
Yeah, these are a blast.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to everyone coming to Uruguay in a month and a half, welcome. We're gonna have our summer camp last week
Have
of
fun.
January this year. We're gonna have a lot of fun, and we're gonna have a Mate Talk in person then. So hope you all join us.
Sweet.
Excellent. It'll be the anniversary Mate Talk, right?
Yeah.
Because our first
It
one
will
was
be the
technically
anniversary Mate Talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you all
Awesome.
so much. Have a wonderful season.
Thank you. And Happy New
Yes.
Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Happy New
Bye.
Year.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.